Today, we're talking about Fanatics and whether or not they are up to some unethical business practices when it comes to marketing towards card collectors. This does impact their Fanatics sportsbook, but then also Fanatics Live in of itself. And it's one of those things that I've sort of seen happen over the last 6 to 12 months. And I've seen something in the last few days that's triggered the thought process again on this topic, because it's one of those ones that I think is a bit of a slippery slope. And you guys would have heard me talk about it very briefly in the last video, something that could cause a lot of confusion about which hat Fanatics and Tops are wearing when they're communicating to us as collectors. And I want to try and unpack this. So guys, just bear with me as always, and we'll jump straight into it. Now, it basically relates to a post here from Signed and Slab that popped up on Instagram. And he talked about going to the Tops Transcendent VIP event, which I think is something that Tops do every couple of years. I'm not sure how long it's been running. But basically, it's a thing for bigwigs that they go to. People can get, free VIP tickets at a high level. I think these tickets are between $2 to $4 grand if you try and buy them for yourself. But it's basically an event where they give you some goodie bag, give you some dinner, and sort of go on from there. But what was sort of interesting in terms of the goodie bag that the people got from this event was not so much the cards in of itself, because there were some pretty cool cards in there that people did in fact get. To give you some context, you got a backpack and some of these cards that look like that. The interesting thing within this, swag bag was this thing here, and that is a $250 bonus bet to Fanatics Sportsbook. And this has left me feeling a little bit uneasy in terms of which hat, like I said, Fanatics is wearing when they're marketing towards us as card collectors. And it's one of those things that I think is a slippery slope, including bonus bets like this, is all well and good for them to do as a business. They have their own prerogative to try and do this sort of stuff. They've got the rights to basically go ahead and do it, but it's one of those ones that makes me uneasy. You've basically got a company here now targeting and pushing an event for collectors, right? That's a Tops event for card collectors, and they're now giving up bonus bets in the sense of basically aligning card collecting and their card collecting offering to also betting, obviously in an effort to get people funneled in onto their sports book, which is again well within their rights. But it's one of those things that is very concerning, especially when people sit back and sort of have accusations, maybe it's too strong of a word, but have thoughts around where the hobby is going and how it's becoming very gambling focused, and how there's some concern now that, Fanatics basically hold every license. They have this selling platform. They're very much aligned to certain breakers. What does that mean for the long-term health? Are we going to see more and more breaking, i.e. gambling focused stuff from them? And I think stuff like this being intertwined into a card VIP night is something that I think very much indicates that's sort of where, Fanatics is sort of heading and what they're looking towards. And, again, they're well within their rights to go ahead and do that, but it just seems a bit weird to me. These things should be kept separate, in my opinion. And it sort of gets a bit more concerning when you think back to something we spoke about maybe 6 months ago. It could have been a bit longer. I'll put some things on screen now about the hobby rip nights that Tops runs. These are, events they hold around at card shows around the country, in the US, I should say. And they have, athletes come to these. I think Tom Brady, Kevin Hart were at some of these this year. And what was very concerning about that event in particular this year was that they were handing out goodie bags to kids that had like free packs in there, some bonus cards, all that sort of stuff. But one of the things was very similar to that sportsbook thing that I just showed you. And it was in fact a $25 coupon or something around that dollar range for kids to be basically going on and using Fanatics Live. And I made a big deal about it at the time because I thought, that's not really a good look. You look at these platforms and they're very much gambling, and you sort of put it in front of somebody that doesn't know anything about card collecting, and they're going to say that is gambling, i.e. buying into a break is gambling. And it left me scratching my head around, well, are they sort of using this to sort of groom and prime, the younger audience to go ahead and start, using these to get them hooked onto gambling, and then when they get a bit older, well, they're not going to maybe use Fanatics Live as much anymore, but maybe we can get them hooked on our sports book. And then they get a bit older, start going to these VIP events or some of these other exclusive events, and they're now handing out bonus bets for their sports book. It's like, what's actually going on here? And it also makes me a bit concerned about, what the offering might actually look like from a sportsbook perspective moving forward. I would not be shocked, and I'm going to go on the record here and say I would not be shocked if there is parallels or certain exclusives or certain sets tied to Fanatics Sportsbook in the future. And what do I mean by that? I basically mean that you go on there and you go bet on a game, a soccer game, a basketball game, football game, whatever it is, and off the back of that, you either get a chance or you're guaranteed to get, a parallel or a serial numbered card that's exclusive to Fanatics Sportsbook, and they could be short prints and the like. And I would not be shocked to sort of see that. And you guys might sit back and say, well, you know, they're very different things. Selling cards and sportsbook are very different things, very different industries. They're not going to interlink them, but they already are doing that because they have a card-specific VIP event where they're giving out these coupon codes, right? They're giving out these bonus bets. You go to their trade nights, their rip nights, and they're handing out, you know, the same thing to kids, but in the form of Fanatics Live. It's one of those ones where it just looks very, very uneasy. And why it goes to what I sort of said at the start, at least I think I did. I definitely said it in the last video around trying to understand what the position is of Fanatics, like what hat they're wearing when they're talking to us. Because is their ultimate goal to get people onto their sportsbook? And if that is the case, when they're going ahead and selling us cards, are they doing so under the pretense of trying to get us on the sportsbook, or are they trying to do so, you know, as a card, you know, manufacturer? And that's where things get very tricky, in my opinion, and where things lose transparency, because it comes down to them maybe having ulterior motives to get you hooked onto certain things. And I think if they were to come out one day, like I just said, with, you know, exclusive cards tied to their sportsbook, that could be a very dark day for this space, in my opinion, because that's sort of not what you want to see happen. You don't want to see that kind of thing become mainstream purely because of the gambling, you know, issues off the back of that. And then, you know, obviously that being $1 trillion industry could have some pretty big consequences for current card collectors, because if a focus goes to that sportsbook and they're trying to build that sportsbook up and they're trying to supplement that and create additional value for people that are gambling on that platform by making exclusive parallels, that then might become the focus of where the good cards go and the good hits go. And that's where, you know, a lot more questions come, and that's where a lot more consequences come for us as card collectors. And you know, I could be off the base by this opinion in this video, but it just looks a bit concerning to me. And I want to hear what you guys have to say, because I just think it's a slippery slope. I've said that quite a few times now, and I don't like it. I don't think it passes the smell test, and I think it's one of those where, you know, again, they're wearing multiple hats, and we don't know which hat they're wearing when they're talking to us. There's a reason why, you know, transparency is big. There's a reason why, you know, independence is a big deal when it comes to risk management and financial markets and gambling markets and all that sort of stuff. And this just seems a bit weird. So I'm not sure whether they've done more of this at Fanatics Fest, which is currently on right now, but maybe some of you guys are there and can shed some light. But it's one of those, like I said, it just seems a bit uneasy to me. And given that we've now seen them sort of take that approach with kids at rip nights, and now taking that approach now with adults, and again, people are, you know, well within the right to do whatever the heck they want. Companies are well within their rights to do whatever the heck they want. This just seems very, very odd to me. So I'm rambling. I always say that at the end of my videos, but you know, I can't help myself. So let me know your thoughts, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.